Churches and their surrounding cemeteries have fueled the imagination and given birth to supernatural stories throughout the ages. If you ever encounter a ghost, it's most likely to happen in a graveyard. However, there are stories told in Liperi, above all, about the ghost of the church. It is said that a ghostly person roams in the church and a woman's figure has been seen in the window of the church tower. The old people, on the other hand, knew to tell about devils who lifted the dead from their graves and took them inside the church to meet evil spirits. Liperi Church Hill has witnessed dramatic events during its history. In the early 17th century, the region of present-day North Karelia came under the Swedish crown as a conquered land. That is why the Lutheran Church sought to strengthen its position in these border regions, which were traditionally inhabited by Orthodox Christians. The Lutheran parish of Liperi was founded in 1630, and already in the following decade the first modest church was built nearby the current church. The church had an earthen floor, under which the dead were buried according to the custom of the time. The Orthodox burned the church during the War of Rupture in 1656, and the Lutherans in turn burned the nearby Orthodox chapel in revenge. The new church, completed in 1669, also began to deteriorate over time and due to lack of maintenance. In 1760, the third church was built, which was a wooden cross church larger than its predecessors. The old church stood in place until the 1770s and was used as a cemetery. However, the parish decided to demolish the building because it was claimed that the church had become a practice place for magic. By the 1820s, the church also began to be in poor condition and the population had also grown. A new proper church was planned for a long time. The parish planned to build a church with up to 6,000 seats, but ended up with a church for 3,000 seats. The drawings were ordered from Carl Ludwig Engel, who became famous as the architect of the city center of Helsinki, and who had designed several churches and other public buildings in various parts of Finland in the classical empire style. The old church was demolished in the spring of 1838, and the new church was dedicated at the end of 1839. However, the new church did not have time to serve the parish for a long time, as it burned down already in 1842 in a fire started by lightning. The church archive, priests' robes, and other chattels were saved. A temporary church was built in place of the burnt church, which was in use for 15 years. The parish would have liked to build a wooden church, but according to the governor's decision, the church had to be made of brick. North Karelia's first brick church was completed in 1859. It was designed by architect Kuwait and built by Theodor Tolpo. In terms of style, the church represents Gothic, but in order to avoid costs, many details and decorative motifs had been abandoned during the construction. Pentila was a large building built in the 18th century by the postmaster of Liperi. It served for a long time as a courthouse and judge's residence, and since the end of the 19th century as a public school. Many generations have heard the eerie creaking of floorboards and the slamming of oven doors in the school building. Is it the judge who complained about his concerns, or whether it was the soul of the convicted criminal? The old house of Pentila was burned down in 1995, and a new house imitating the style of the 18th century was built in its place. The house has functioned as a museum, municipal council meeting hall, and as a teaching room. Who knows if the ghost of Pentila had moved to a new Pentila to bring joy to children and decision makers. Have you heard anything? According to oral tradition, Liperi's place of execution was located in the 17th, 18th centuries in Kasama at the crossroads of the old Joensuu-Liperi road. It is said to be haunting in this place in autumn nights, which is no surprise. After all, the places of execution were also horrified contemporaries. Therefore, they were usually located in a remote area far from the village. The death penalty was usually imposed in Finland for serious crimes, such as murder, but you could also lose your life for burglary. Typical death penalty convicts were women who killed their babies in a desperate situation. Altogether, death sentences were rarely carried out in North Karelia, but there are still at least 7 execution places in the province, including Liperi. The last execution in North Karelia took place on Havukka-Kallio in Ilomantsi in 1820, when Liisa Sivonen, convicted of killing her half-year-old child, received her punishment. The death penalty was carried out by the hangman either by hanging or by beheading, for example by cutting the convicted's neck. By order of the king, the inhabitants of the nearby villages had to come to watch the execution.